I started writing songs when I was a kid. I remember my first song was something I wrote when I was around 8, and
Remember what it was about?
yeah, it was about community and world
Oh,
unity. I remember the lyrics very well. I
ah,
had I had a real interest in social justice. Being a person of color,
okay.
I was always aware of the inequities of this country. My folks were from the South. My father's side of the family came up from Alabama to escape the violence that was going on down there. On my mother's side, they were out of Kentucky and Missouri, which was where there was a lot of violence towards
Yeah.
blacks then. So from a very, very early age, I had this wish for world harmony, and so the song was about that.
Uh,
I remember the lyrics quite well, and it was a very, sort of naive, innocent plea for connection, human connection, without bias
yeah.
and prejudice.
Sometimes, I feel like it's almost like you need that childlike look at things to sort of simplify it. I'll give you a quick aside here. I used to be a fourth grade teacher. I was a substitute for many years and then took over for a teacher that got sick because they really enjoyed me. Um, and that led into me doing that for a couple of years. And then I kind of realized that, devoting myself to that full time was kind of not true to my heart. I needed to get back to what I was all about, which was music. And I'm glad that I did that because eventually, that led into me working for Blue Bear, all these other things. But I remember 9/11 and being a teacher for a fourth grade class and,
Hmm.
driving up to the parking lot and kids running out to me and saying, "Did you watch the news?" and explaining to me about the planes and the towers. And at that time, my a lot of family and friends that were in New York. So it was pretty devastating in terms of, the not knowing what was going to happen and then trying to have to deal with all of that while, keeping your composure in front of children, and then also wanting to, turn on the news and get some sort of uh, understanding of what was happening. But the reason I bring this up was, the the day of, we didn't, we were sort of instructed by the principal to try to keep it as light and not talk about it as much as you could, and let the parents get, for I guess first crack, if you will, to tell the kids about what's going on. But we were stuck in such a unique and surreal moment. I felt the need to have at least a minor discussion with the kids about it. And this is, these are like 9, 10 years old kids, you know, uh,
Hmm.
not much different from when you were writing this song. But I remember, one of the kids asking me, um, he was like, why do these people want to do this to us? And I said, well, it's a pretty big conversation, but the gist of it, the main point was that there's a piece of land that two different groups really have strong feelings over, and there's a book that tells each of those groups of people that that land is their land. And so they have a disagreement about which book is right and which, you know whose land this is. And it's kind of about that. And I remember, it just totally blew me away, was this little girl raised her hand in the back. She goes, well, why don't they just share? And I was like, okay, exactly, why don't they just share? So and it was just a sweet moment because it was like sometimes the simplest idea is really what it comes down to. Um, So yeah, I mean that's
Yep,
certainly is a heavy topic, but
I agree.
here we are now, and this is something I had thought about. Like back in March when we were all freaking out about like this is our world and what's it going to be. Little did we know that May would be a whole different ball of wax, and that the virus was just one element of it. As we're seeing all this obviously much needed upheaval in our social structures and our power structures with regards to policing and the unfair treatment of a section of our society. So I'd love to get your thoughts on where you think that's going. For one, I would say like I almost feel like the fact that this happened during a pandemic was almost like this marriage of, everyone was so angry and frustrated and upset, and then we have Trump, and we have, all the chaos that's going on everywhere else. It was just like this perfect marriage of stuff where things finally blew up, and I'm really glad to see that we're seemingly actually getting some modicums of change. I mean, it kind of, we'll see what happens beyond this, but I'm curious, to get your thoughts on that, and also what you think it might mean for artists and creativity now, as somebody who wrote that song when they were 8.
Yes, I'm 67, so I was pretty steeped in the cultural revolution that took place in the 60s. That was right at my time. So at that time, I was politically active. I was part of the Black Student Union. I was part of the anti-war movement. I was part of the anti-nuke movement.
Yeah.
I was part of the Cultural Revolution in terms of questioning social conventions and being again, like I say, a person of color where I've got a family steeped in a legacy of knowing that piece of our history as a country. I was quite aware of the challenges at that time and have been active in that way since that time. And music, of course, at that time was used as a way to help to make the message clear to people, to get it across in a way where folks might be able to take it in. So music for me, given that I grew up at a time like that, and given that because of the times, music really played a role in social change. We had music at that time. Artists at that time were about change. Music meant change from what's going on from Marvin Gaye to Bob Dylan, A Change is Going to Come, to Sam Cooke,
Yeah.
um, uh, Blowing in the Wind by Bobby Dylan, A Change is Going to Come by
Sam, yeah.
Sam Cooke. Music had a political mission at that time. Popular music at that time had a had a a political mission for change, for change which would make so that folks would have equity in the society.
And,
And
in some ways,
we had the civil rights movement
yeah,
at that time. And so what we're seeing today is just an ongoing continuation of that same struggle. We pushed through a number of things back at that time, but yet the mission has not been accomplished. And so what we're seeing today is just a continuation. The But the pandemic made things so that folks had to stop. They literally had to not,
yeah,
they literally had there was no work to go to. There was
yeah,
no schools to have to go to. There wasn't the party that you had to make. You couldn't go to the concert. The sports event had to be canceled. There were no weddings. Everybody had to just stop. And the fact that George Floyd happened, and right when everybody could actually stop long enough to actually take it in, to actually then experience the gravity of what's been going on for millennia, is why we're seeing what we're seeing today.
yeah,
People have just been too distracted. It's not that this stuff hasn't been happening, it's just that folks have been, distracted, and their attention has been directed in ways where they just haven't had the time to take in just what this kind of a thing that we've been dealing with as a nation for decades, for hundreds of years.
yeah.
People had a moment to
Oh, you froze.
take it intellectually and feel bad about it for a moment. But whoa, I got to get to my meeting. This time, folks could take it in and actually sit with it in a way where they could feel the the gravity of the violence, and then to comprehend that whoa, this isn't just an isolated incident. This is what's been going on for ever. It's been an institutionalized way in which this country has managed its people and BS'd its other folks,
Yeah,
kept everybody blind and distracted. So I'm glad that this happened in spite of the fact that there's been a lot of grief, a lot of loss. Um, I've lost friends to this virus. I got sick with the virus. I was sick for 6 weeks. I've lost a couple of my dear friends to it. So there's been a lot of loss, but at the same time, we've had an opportunity to seize the moment for real structural change. And so let's just hope that people can stay focused to push this through and not again be distracted. I mean, it's clear to me why Trump wants to get everybody back up and running again, why he wants the economy to kick off, because of course, when things are kicked off and people are distracted and they're busy, they don't have time to think, they don't have time to feel, they don't have time to notice that, whoa, this is BS.
Yeah,
So let's just hope that folks can stay centered in what this moment has advantaged us
yeah,
with
you know,
to make some real change in November. That's my
yeah.
hope.
And
I'm
I
certainly participating.
absolutely,
I'm playing a role. I'm very politically involved. And for me, I guess music has always been more of a political tool. That's how I grew up. That's what it meant at the times when I came into music. John Coltrane and what he was saying through it, the jazz artists, what they
yeah,
were saying through it, the music reflecting the times of the people.
yeah,
And so for me, music has always been a tool for communication. And let's just hope that we're connecting and communicating in a way now where we can move things forward as
yeah,
a people, as a world, really. The whole world has been
yeah,
impacted by what has happened here. We've seen the Black Lives Movement
yeah,
be very uh, uh, in places all over the world,
yeah,
looking at their own uh, selves, because this kind of a thing is not just American. It's been a universal thing. Colonialism was something that was participated in by the
yeah,
whole world, and so the world is looking at that piece and how the effects of it are still having an impact on our lives today, and we need to change it.
yeah. I agree. This one thing that I think has come up during all this, which I thought was really interesting, is like you said, now that people don't have the distractions, they have time to, they can't put it off anymore. I think we've seen, in various polling that now, like 5 years ago, you know, half the country thought that black people and people of color in general had a harder time, and there was this, systemic system that was the problem. But now, fast forward to where we're at now, that has changed considerably, and like almost three-quarters of the nation believes that this is a significant problem that we have to deal with, that white people don't experience. And we've seen films like the 13th, and just a lot of the articles that have been coming out that are really showing people what sadly we never got. This is something that I've been saying since this went down, and I saw 13th and a lot, and learned a lot of these other things. I didn't even know about the massacre of Black Wall Street until like a year ago, a year and a half.
Right.
Why was that not taught in schools? I didn't know about Rosewood. I didn't know about young black children being used as bait to lure alligators by alligator trappers. Like these horrible, like definitive, awful things that our country has done to a subset, is like the fact that we whitewashed it. And really, is no other way to call that. Is so sad and so infuriating that I feel like, with that kind of coming to light, and all like during this time where we have moments to sit around and be in front of a TV or a computer and not have to worry, like you said, to rush off to work or to the game or whatever it is. Um, it's almost like it was this intense marriage of circumstances where now people are paying attention, and they're not going back. Like that genie's out of the bottle. And I really hope that we can translate that into bigger gains, and not just in cities where we vote like we do. And it's just, I see writing on the wall, and I really hope that it gets put in ink. I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, the thing that really was quite remarkable that you couldn't have planned it was was the fact that this is all happening right at a time when we've got, in my estimation, I don't care what people say, but where we've got a stone cold racist as a leader of the country, and
A
so
vile,
this
unethical person.
so the contrast couldn't be more stark,
Yeah,
because this couldn't have happened at a better time when it's quite clear that what this guy is propagating is just more of the same toxic rhetoric and behavior. So
yeah,
this was a perfect, it's a perfect storm.
yeah, it really was.
Gives people a real way to see who we are and what we still haven't taken time to heal from.
Yeah,
Um, the nation is still very sick, still pretty much
yeah,
steeped in its sense of denial. Well, America lives with this myth of who we imagine we are, and when you really look at the history, we're nothing. What land of the free, home of the brave. This the violence that has been perpetrated by this country toward its own people,
yeah,
not just the others, but even to its own people, has just been, yeah, it's been pushed under the rug. You can't let that out there. You have to keep people mind effed in order to keep maintain the kind of control that they implement. So yeah, it's good that we kind of can take the veil off and really see ourselves.
yeah.